This is Monkey World, the largest ape and monkey rescue centre on the planet. With every animal comes a story. Some funny, some shocking. Dramas great and small. Today on Monkey Life, we find out if chimpanzee Joline recovers from her mystery illness. And we catch up with chimp babies Ash and Rodders.
They're big enough and independent enough and weaned enough that they could move into the main group today.
Monkey World cares for 160 primates. Each one has a unique range of behaviours and characteristics. Recently, primate care staff noticed a change in 17-year-old chimpanzee Freddie. He wasn't being his usual boisterous self.
You know, why is he looking sick? Why is his personality changed? Why isn't he diving into the group like he usually does? He's a pain in the neck, Freddie, right? If there's a fight, the boy's in, you know? And when you see the wild child, the reckless child, the one who always dives in where he shouldn't be, you know, when you see that dramatically change, any mom will see that and say, so something's going on here.
The staff thinks there might be a problem with Freddie's bowels. It could be something as simple as piles, or something much more sinister. The team aren't taking any chances, and this morning wildlife vet John Lewis prepares for a full internal investigation.
Now and again he bleeds from his rear end. And last time I was down here, we had a good look in the last part of the gut, which is as far as I can go with the instruments that I've had. And I'm not an expert in the interiors of chimps by any means at all, and we couldn't see anything at all. This time, we're bringing in a specialist, a human specialist actually, whose speciality is looking at the inside of the last part of the gut. It could be a minor ulcer in there, which is a relatively trivial affair. It might even be a cancer, a tumour. So you've got anything between those two things.
To give the team more room, today's procedure will be carried out in one of the chimp pavilions, which has been sterilised.
Basically, they're going to take a camera and look up inside Freddie and see if they can find something nasty. You know, we really hope not, because this is Freddie's life at stake.
Freddie was rescued 12 years ago from Austria, where he was found wandering alone in a park. He was probably an unwanted pet, which meant he didn't understand chimp behaviour when he first arrived at Monkey World. But careful rehabilitation and lots of attention from the other chimps has transformed him into a popular member of the boisterous bachelor boys. Freddie is fully sedated during the investigation, in which Dr. Nick Scherer will use a flexible fibre optic camera to examine Freddie's intestines.
And head towards me, long way towards me, please, at the moment.
Chimp intestines are 27 foot long. Dr. Scherer will push the camera along part of the gut to look for any abnormality that might explain Freddie's symptoms.
You can see the scope has got a variety of controls, so I can move it left, right, up and down. Yeah, it's got a little wash button, so I can sort of wash any debris off. Yeah, and hopefully, by looking through this, we'll be able to manipulate it all the way around Freddie's bowel, and hopefully see if there is any cause of his bleeding. Okay.
Pretty much when a human doctor gets inside a chimp, he feels comfortable. And so, you know, the anatomy of a chimp is close. It's a little different. So John's there with his knowledge of chimp anatomy. You've got Nick Scherer there with his expert knowledge of human anatomy, and you put those people together, and you're hoping for a good outcome for Freddie, hoping that we get lucky, that all is well.
It's a hot day, and in Paddy's chimp enclosure, head keeper Lee has a special treat. The chimp version of an ice lolly. Frozen fruit, the perfect way for them to cool down. The fruit is placed in the pond and hidden between the rocks. This makes the chimps work harder for their reward. Although this enclosure covers 2 acres, it doesn't take long for Gamba to guide the group over to the fruit stash. The chimps always shout about something new, especially if it's food. Alpha male Paddy immediately leaps in to take control. But low-ranking Mickey sneaks in behind and grabs as much as he can hold. The smallest member of the clan, Eddie, isn't keen getting wet. For once, she's happy to watch and learn how it's done. 26-year-old Kathy is much bolder and heads straight in. Chimpanzees' arms are longer than their legs, so they can reach out to fruits growing on branches. It also means they can stretch right out into the pond. Paddy's not worried about the water either and takes what he wants. He knows he's going to be popular with anyone who doesn't want to get wet, so he's off to find himself a hiding place. High-ranking Beth has also grabbed a melon, but she hasn't got into a hiding place fast enough. And in hot pursuit are Buster, Clin, and Eddie. But Beth isn't feeling generous, and the harder they try, the more Beth ignores them. Across the enclosure, even alpha male Paddy is having problems. But luckily for him, only one chimp is brave enough to try and take some of the treat. Second in command, Jimmy. Beth's following has grown from 3 to 5, but she's a high-ranking female, so it will take more than a few eager subordinates to make her give up her prize. But persistent Eddie pushes her baby status privileges and luck to the limit, and it finally pays off. Eddie's chances of keeping the prize treat are slim with cheeky Buster around, and no sooner does she have it, it's gone.
Happy with the patient up your end?
He's absolutely fine, yeah.
Chimpanzee Freddie has been under anaesthetic for 15 minutes. Specialist Dr. Scherer is carrying out his bowel investigation.
Should I just a bit more suction?
Right.
Please.
He's just let go.
Yeah, keep going. That's lovely. Yeah, no, it's lovely. I can see it all whizzing up the tube. Yeah.
You don't get out much.
I don't get out much. Yeah. I'm afraid for anybody other than the operator, it's like watching paint dry.
The camera is now part way through Freddie's bowel, but so far Dr. Scherer hasn't found any blockages, bleeding or signs of a tumour.
So, yeah.
And there's a problem. The deeper the camera travels into Freddie's bowel, the harder it becomes to control the device at the end of the flexible tube.
Essentially, this is like trying to stand at one end of your garden and push the garden hose in a straight line to the other end of the garden. And of course, by the time it gets halfway, it starts curling and kinking in the middle. Yeah, and the more you push, all you get is curling and curling and curling. And you have to try and keep straightening it out to get the loops out to get it advancing further. How much trouble do you think it would be to turn Freddie on his back?
None at all.
Excellent, let's do that then. Yeah, it might just help the bowel to flop into a better position to allow us to go round.
Now Freddie is on his back, Dr. Scherer is able to make good progress through the intestine. Eventually, he completes his examination, and to everyone's relief, he hasn't spotted anything sinister.
We've examined the left side of Freddie's bowel completely, which is entirely normal. And indeed, if a human were complaining of bright red rectal bleeding, that would be the investigation we would choose to do.
But from what you see, what do you think?
What I can see is absolutely looks normal. Yeah, there's no sign of any blood coming from any higher up. We can certainly take a couple of biopsies from the bowel.
It may be good news, but it doesn't explain why Freddie's bleeding. So Dr. Scherer decides to take a biopsy. A small cutting device is inserted along the tube to remove a piece of Freddie's intestine. It'll be sent off for further medical tests. But then, as he is removing the camera, he thinks he's finally found the cause of the problem. Unluckily for Freddie, as everyone hoped, there's a simple explanation.
I'm just saying that at the anal canal, there's sort of protuberances that would essentially be small hemorrhoids, so small piles. That could easily be the cause of some bleeding.
Chimps are susceptible to most of the same ailments that affect humans. So for Jim, finding out that Freddie just has piles is a relief.
But it's not drastic or terminal. And that was our big scare, wasn't it? I mean, you always worry, but it's not. So I'm pleased. Allison will be really pleased. Let's watch and let's see. But it is possible that, he could have gotten a habit and maybe he's worrying it. And if he's doing that, we can do things. And it really, we'll have to do some basics, stay in touch with John, stay in touch with Nick, and go from there.
When he recovers from his anesthetic, Freddie will rejoin his friends in the bachelor group. His condition might not be serious, but let's hope they won't be too rough with him for a little while. At Monkey World, in Hernanya's chimpanzee group, there is sad news. 10-year-old Joline has died. She'd been in decline for weeks.
In the end, what finally got Joline was kidney failure. On her last check that the vets did when they had her under anesthetic, they ran some bloods directly off to the lab and they came back that she had no kidney function. And that's actually quite a nasty, painful thing to encounter. So at that point in time, it was decided really that there was nothing more that can be done for her, and rather than let her continue on and suffer a few more days, the decision was made to actually put Joline to sleep.
It was very difficult for all of the primate care staff.
Keeping her alive for an extra couple of days, she would have been in terrible pain and upset and wouldn't have been able to move around as she wanted to. So, yeah, the decision was made for her, and we sadly had to end her life.
Joline's illness was a mystery from the start. For several weeks, she'd had a strange collection of symptoms such as baldness, swelling and stiff joints. But a full range of medical tests and an exploratory operation showed nothing conclusive.
Sometimes in these situations, miracles happen, and that's what we're after. There's nothing else to explain the clinical signs we've had.
Did you see them both?
Chimpanzees are one of the best animals at hiding if they're in pain. It's a defense mechanism.
By the time you start noticing, say, Joline taking weak or stiff steps kind of thing, she's probably in an awful lot of pain at that point in time. And all you have to go on are all of these faint signs of illness that they're always trying to mask. So it isn't very easy to necessarily figure out what is happening with them. And Joline's case was just that. She was a little bit of a mystery from beginning to end.
Joline was rescued from a laboratory in Holland 7 years ago. She was never experimented on, but the park often finds that living in an unnatural environment like a lab can cause physical problems later on.
We don't actually know why Joline's immune system wasn't capable of dealing with it. I mean, whether it has something to do with her background or not. All of the other 3 laboratory chimps are fit and healthy. And I guess that's what we have to stick with now and try and remember, is that even when you have a tragic, just devastating death like this, that you've got everybody else who still needs you. And so you look to all of the others and you try and make sure that you do what's right for them, and that you come in the next day ready to go and ready to do the right thing for those that are left behind, because it's a new day.
This afternoon, there's some long-awaited progress in the nursery chimp group. Youngsters Ben and Pip are finally playing outside. Although Ben has always been quite confident, he normally sticks by cautious Pip. But today, Ben has left Pip's side to explore his surroundings alone. The park has been waiting for this moment for a long time, so it's fantastic to see. Pip follows Ben's lead and decides it's time she explored the outside world on her own. It's a huge development for a nervous chimp. 6 years ago, both chimps were rejected by their mums, so they had to be hand-reared.
tell him. Yeah, see him off. Right.
After 18 months, they successfully moved into the chimp nursery with foster mum Sally.
And this is going well.
But the trouble with this pair was the bigger they grew, the more they became afraid of the outside world.
They just don't seem bothered. By now, everybody else would have just strolled out, so I don't know what these guys' problem is.
But now, as Ben's confidence grows, he's found the perfect playmate, 8-year-old Seamus. Seamus loves messing around and tons of rough and tumble. But sadly, Seamus isn't really the best role model. He might be a lovable hooligan, but he's very spoiled by Sally. He's allowed to get away with everything. And although everyone is very pleased at Ben's newfound confidence, they do hope spending so much time with Seamus won't turn Ben into a naughty chimp too. In the boisterous bachelor group enclosure, there's concern for one of the park's most lovable characters, Charlie. He is 22 years old, but looks a lot older. This is because of the physical abuse he suffered as a beach photographer's prop in Spain. Charlie has always been popular with the boisterous group of 13, and alpha male Butch is often by his side keeping an eye on him. It's common to see Charlie being groomed by his fellow bachelors, and apart from his love of food, there's nothing he enjoys more. But now the park is worried that the 22-year-old is not being as well looked after. In fact, today, he's struggling to get his hands on his favourite treat. Charlie is usually first in there with a mammoth helping, but it seems that he's having trouble getting just one piece. And even newcomer Gypsy has managed to get his hands on some of the tasty corn. More worrying for Charlie is the fact that his usual protector, Butch, is being very rough with him. Luckily, high-ranking male Jester is on hand to help Charlie. Butch does have a hot temper, and it's hard to tell if Charlie was just in the way or if the alpha male specifically targeted him. It's good news that Charlie has others around who can defend him, and the usually feisty Jester is even happy to share a small piece of corn with him. But the primate care staff will have to make sure that poor Charlie doesn't get picked on too often at mealtimes. Back over in the chimp nursery, new babies are usually cared for by foster mum Sally. But today, animal manager Jeremy is about to introduce Ash and Rodders to the other adult female in this group, Lulu.
Come on. Come on. Who's this? Who have we got here? You want that one? Oops, no. Sorry, that was my fault.
This little male and female are the youngest chimps in the park. They haven't moved to the nursery yet. Meeting one of their potential foster mums is the first stage.
Rodders and Ash are about 1.25 years now, and I want this to move quite quickly, though really it's up to them as to how quickly. This will be sort of pushed along, but you mustn't push it too fast, otherwise it'll just go backwards. And simple as that. They're big enough and independent enough and weaned enough that they could move into the main group today. But obviously it'll take it'll be a while. I don't know how long, when we're good and ready.
Both Ash and Rodders were rejected by their mums. The park decided to hand-rear them together so they could get used to being with other chimps from birth. It should make it much easier for them to settle into the chimp nursery. Unlike Ben and Pip, these two love playing outdoors. Every day they develop their muscles and coordination on their very own climbing frame.
Whimper, whimper.
Lulu was rescued from Cyprus 6 years ago when a family saved her from a circus. Her mother had bitten her right arm, it became infected and had to be amputated. Lulu has no problems living life with just one arm and is now just as responsible for bringing up the babies as foster mum Sally. And one day, she might even take over. Chimp meetings can be noisy, but Lulu is very calm and tries to make the babies as comfortable as possible. She makes submissive gestures such as crouching and offering out her hand and feet. Rodders and Ash are both quite nervous of Lulu, sticking close to Jeremy. But every now and again, when they realise there's nothing to be scared of, they do let go a bit.
I think the next thing to do is to introduce more people, get them all, you know, I'll probably bring them in with maybe everybody or certainly more individuals, and then, you know, let them take over and I can fade away. You know, next time Ash comes off me, I might stand up and see what happens. You know, they're obviously playing reasonably well. Oh, really independent, yeah. I was just cracking you up to be really independent and terrific and good. You're going to pull that.
This meeting has gone well, but it looks like Ash and Rodders might need Jeremy's support for a little while longer. Next time, the park is hit by some devastating and unexpected news.